Okay, everyone, just a little point of interest. I'm out in front of the Waterhouse Gallery in Santa Barbara. It's a gallery I happen to exhibit at. We happen to be up here for an event. And so I figured, what the heck, since I'm in Santa Barbara, let's do a Santa Barbara scene. This is Leadbetter Beach. I've actually painted, I have not painted this exact scene, but I've painted this beach before on location several times. I liked it because of kind of the graphic breakup of space, light and shadow. It's backlit pretty much to the left. And the reason I know that is I can look at these rocks, see this top light here, and there's a little bit of a cast shadow down there. So that tells me where the light's coming from. I always like to know that as I paint because it helps me as I apply my lights. So with that in mind, we're just going to get sketching real quick. And I'm only going to spend a couple minutes getting the sketch down. So we're just kind of looking for these shapes. This is a little bit above halfway, so it's about here. Up, and then it goes up, here, up again, here, up to this level, where it goes off, and we definitely want it going off long before the corner. So that's basically pretty much it. Now this is going to come down here. It's going to almost be straight over. Then we've got this beautiful big rock up front. Kind of pop that in, and then one of the things that I like is I like the layering. And let me explain what I mean by that. This is far back. This is getting a little closer. Gets closer. There's a bluff back here. There's one up front, and it's overlapping. This overlaps that. This overlaps that. That overlaps that. That in mind, you know, that's something I actually keep in my head as I'm working, so I know I'm aware of these kind of things. But this is the front overlap, and I like this kind of jogging goes on here. Probably bring this up a little higher, bring this one up a little higher. Some of that I will change as I paint. Probably let this go off. There's another beautiful angle of a rock right kind of right about here. Kind of like that angle. Then there's some small rocks which I can or cannot put in either way. Really doesn't matter. So with that in mind, that's about all I'm going to start with as a sketch. If I were doing plein air, exactly the same. Again, 18 by 24. You can see about the color of this based on my flesh. It's about similar value, much grayer, more of a brown. And 24, 18. All right. With that in mind, let's get the sky in. I always start with the farthest back, which is if there's sky in the picture, it's always the sky. So a little ultramarine blue, white, and a little Naples. All right. Naples takes the harshness off that ultramarine blue. I'm going to throw a little more blue into it. Give it a little more color, not a lot. Let's see what this looks like. Yeah, that feels a little better. But I want to get it in fast while I'm using my gesso brush. The reason I want to get it in fast is so I can get into the areas that have more information. The more information that I'm trying to convey, the more time I'm going to need. So there's not a lot of information. There's just some value and color changes in the sky. That isn't to say you should just kind of pass over the sky and not really pay a lot of attention to it. You can really spend a lot of time on skies. And very often on a longer painting, I'll go back into a sky and will augment colors, kind of slightly key them up a little bit, brighten them. As it moves down into this range, it gets a little warmer. So I actually do like the blue that I've got. Oh wow! This is a much harsher blue. That's a much softer blue. Softer meaning not as raw. That's kind of a raw. This is softened down a little bit. Now I do want to lighten it as it moves down. So I added some white and a little bit of one of my reds. In this case, I think it's an operating red. So it goes a little bit longer down here. You can see. And then I'll link them together. Working together means that they'll start a little separate like this. Too strong. Let's throw a little bit more yellow into that. There we go. I'll start with that. doesn't mean I'm going to end up there. Bring a little bit of blue back into it. Work the two together. So you get kind of a blend. I just want it to be soft as it goes down. Softer, lighter, warmer as it hits the horizon, which is about here. Again, that's where I'm going to start. Keep that in mind, that concept of start. A little noise here, huh? Okay, so from that, I'm going to get the tone of the water in. The tone of the water, what is it? It's darker. So I'm going to take blue, add it to the color I was just working with. Again, I'm mixing a little bit of the Naples into it, a little bit more. I don't want it to be that harsh, that cold of a blue. It's actually, I shouldn't say cold, that kind of raw of a blue. So this has got a little bit of Naples thrown into it. It's probably a little bit stronger than I want. As it comes forward, I can see it get lighter, so I'm just taking white.
Lynn wants to know if you're putting in negative space.
Yes, I am. This is all negative. It's all sky. Pardon?
And water.
Well, sky and water. It's background. It's funny, you call it negative. I refer to it as background, but you're right, it is a negative. So we have a kind of a nice starting point. Let's start to get some of the dark masses in. A couple things I want to mention here. Number one, the rocks, the cliffs back behind, I do not want to paint the darks initially as severe as the darks up here or here, so that it does sit back, and it'll sit back simply by not allowing it to get that dark. So I'm going to start with my asphaltum and a little bit of white and a little bit of blue. The blue, because asphaltum is pretty darn warm when you mix white with it. So the blue will neutralize it a little bit. It's pretty dark, but it's not real dark. So we're going to start right about here. Get a nice edge simply by the way I use my brush. It's a little, the paint is a little juicier, a little thinner than I want it to be. So I thickened it up just a little bit. I pretty much remixed it. What I meant by thin is the little, it's got a little too much turf in it. There, that's better. It's still a little on the warm brown side for me, but it's a good starting point. I feel comfortable with the value. The value to me is much more important than having that color exactly where I want it. So, and there, now I notice as it comes in here, it's lighter and cooler. So I'm adding white and ultramarine. Same, just went right to the same color, and we're ending up about in here. So what I really want to establish a ground that I can work off of. All right. And we're going to pick it up about here. I see a lot of color and textural variation in there, but you can't get it all in at once. One of my students in class last week said that she felt she was looking at the detail too soon. And it's a very great observation, because it's exactly what I find when people first start painting is that's one of the things they do. They want it to look really nice right off the bat, where it really has everything that you want in it. And it's just never going to be the case. It's a building process. If I can stress anything in these live painting sessions, I want you to be aware that when you paint, it is a building process. You don't just put down and that one stroke you put down and you're done. Now you just move on. For lack of a better word, I use this word in class and probably don't use it enough. You're guessing. When you put a color and a value and a shape down, you're guessing. Okay. Well, when you guess, you might be wrong. And if you are, great. but keep moving. So we're gonna bring that forward a little bit. This brown to blue, throw a touch of the red in. We're gonna bring right about in here, just a little bit darker. A little bit, not a lot. A little bit back in here. And while I've got that in, I see a nice dark happening down in here. So why not get it in now? I like to intermix color. So I already have a little indication of texture in this area. You see that? Not a lot, a little bit. So we're going to take this whole concept of these darks, we're going to move it up to this rock and this foreground area right now. So because what that means is I'm just not going to add as much white. It really is going to stay the same. I'm just not going to add as much white so that it automatically is darker. And if I want, I can warm it up with a little alizarin, and we'll just kind of come in here. I can go darker still. I'm still not as dark.
Hey,
Oh boy, that's really dark.
hey, how are you? Good. James yesterday? I did not.
See how dark I am here.
UCLA have it.
Little.
They read. They read. Oh, they might have it.
Okay, so we're kind of getting an approximate shape of that rock. And you know what? I kind of like the fact that when I do this, I don't mix the colors really well on my palette, so that some of it kind of mixes on the canvas. And by doing so, I create an interesting textural quality. And it adds a little character so that I don't have to work as hard later on. Add a little extra blue back in here. So I don't know if you guys can see the value variations, but they are there. Let's see here. Okay, so you can see I've got this basic shape stuff. I'm going to take almost that same kind of color, and I like the fact that it's not mixed thoroughly. It adds something to it. So I'm doing it once again, mixing the blue and the brown a little bit. I still have some residue of that other color, and we're going to kind of hit this rock area in right in here. Up, I see some beautiful warms up in there that I can get into in a little bit. Warms meaning in this case, kind of a rust orange color. So we're going to come at a little lizard blue in back into it, a little bit more blue. Probably a little darker than I want to be. So like if I press this brush down this way, you can see I get residue of my previous colors in there, and I can kind of lighten it up just by simply using the brush and letting the ferrule of the brush take marks. So we're going to kind of just scribble around in here. Okay, and that feels pretty good. Oh, we got some nice dark in there. It actually has a little green. So I actually took my sap green for a little bit of it, just to indicate kind of where that is. I call those placeholders when I do this, because I know that it's not a finished mark. It's where something is going to go. So I kind of have it mapped in now. The only thing I probably don't have mapped in is this one rock here. And I do want to add that one for sure. Probably add the little one back behind it, and maybe a couple other ones. So you don't want it to be too big. But that's a pretty good start. I feel I've got the start now. So I've got, I would say, 3/4 of the canvas covered. Let's get a tone in here. See that? Let's start with a little tree up there. Pretty dark. It's probably like this, but with a little more green. So I just took whatever color I was using here, threw a little bit of extra green into it, and we'll kind of that tree. Get the tree down. That feels pretty good. Down. Mixed it again to go a little darker. It felt like it wasn't quite dark enough. Let's start with that. Okay. Leave it alone. now we're gonna get a tone in here. We're gonna go, kind of not to the brightest brights, kind of what we see underneath it. So I've cleaned my brush a little bit. And I'm gonna pick up a Naples. Oh, that one's, I got two Naples by that because one was so sticky. I just grabbed this real sticky one. Unfortunately, when I packed to come up here, I didn't bring ochre, which you guys know, if you've watched me paint before, is a real go-to color for me. So I kind of have to remix those kind of colors if I want. I never feel too much of a where it doesn't work if I don't have that exact color. I figured as long as I got the basic colors, I can come pretty close. So I feel like I've come pretty close right in here. A little on the red side. So I'm good. What do? I'm gonna add a little blue or a little green. In this case, a little blue. That's better. And we're just gonna kind of put this area in, kind of the way that I see it. Over it eventually blends into this color, so we just kind of pull it down into that color a little bit lightly. Again, see me using this brush. The main reason I'm using this brush is for expedience. I can get paint down quickly. You can do it with almost any large brush. I've just become more comfortable with this brush, partly because, as I refer to it, it's a little more clumsy, and I don't I had a tendency when I was first painting to want to make everything too perfect too soon. With a brush like this, it's kind of hard. So it works for me. It may not work for everyone, but it does for me.
All you have to do is pull over.
So just keep picking up a little bit more in the browns. Once I get enough colors in there, then I have something to build on. And then another thing, whether you're right or wrong. When you're first putting something down, you think it's okay, but you just don't know. But as you start to get more and more of your painting developed, colors, values, more developed, what you'll find is that you'll see that things are off. And where they're off, that's when you do any sort of adjustment that will solve that. Have put a little blue, give a little textural quality. Got a really nice light edge there. Put a little bit more warmth back into that color, a little bit more yellow. A little too red, but that's okay for right now. What I can do is get brown and yellow too. That's another way of getting kind of the color that I want. We're coming down here. Got a beautiful piece of red orange back there. So just by adding a little bit more of my red, which is the alizarin, and I can come right there, pop that in. Okay. And little flickers of colors such as that happening throughout. So you can see I've got, I would say, more than 3/4 of my canvas covered. This is pretty close to this. So it's real, and that's just fortunate. That's strictly fortunate. But there is a little bit of a shadow being cast by that rock. So I'm going to take that blue, work it right in, and because shadows tend to be cooler, okay, I'm going to start with it. Hopefully I'll be okay.
How are you?
Good.
Bob Castle.
Hi, Bob.
Good to see you again.
Me too.
Hi.
So, I'm on video, just so you know. So say hello to everybody.
Okay.
So you can see I'm doing the shadow of the rock, and it's just cooler. And a little bit here, a little bit right there. Just being bold, indicating it. Hopefully, I'm going to be right, knowing that I might be wrong. And once, my favorite line. Ain't like you know what you're doing, assume you're wrong. Okay. A little bit, a few little darks in here. Now, I can throw a few darks back in here. This is going to be similar. The only thing that I see that really is going to change is as that water goes in and kind of covers the sand, it gets a little brown. It's because it kicks the sand out. So You can see it gets kind of a little bit of an ochre brown. So I'm going to take my asphaltum and my Naples, mix them together. And that should give me almost the color I want right about there. That's a little darker than I want. So the lighter Naples. Do it again. That's much better. Maybe a little bit more cool into it as it mixes with the water. Right about here. Just try to get some of this background in there so I don't have to kind of sneak it in around elements as I refine some of the foreground elements. I don't want to have to try and sneak my way into that background and paint some of those. So if I can get it pretty darn correct right now, then as I move forward, it's going to be a heck of a lot easier. Now, as I come up in here, in this area, it's very light, but it's quite warm. It's not that beautiful blue. It's more like this. Okay. And then we got the sand, which is a different color. It's a little bluer than that because if I am correct with this in the sand, then this is going to have a little bit of a cooler color. So we'll throw a little cooler color in. Right now, I'm just going to leave that color as a sand color. So I'm going to start in the background once again. I'm not going to I'll worry about a little bit of information back in here. Not right now. I'm going to start up in this area and I'm looking into my deep shadow and I can see some darks and some lights. Because I went nice and medium, I'm going to start going a little darker. Blue, brown, same colors. Blue, brown. The difference is I want it a little bit darker, so I'm not going to have as much white. So we're going to test this first. First thing you always do. It's pretty good. First thing you always do is you test. If it doesn't work, try a different color. This textural qualities right now. And I'm painting generally what I see. If you want to, sometimes you can add, I just threw a touch of alizarin in there just because I was getting bored. Color looking too drab and too much the same everywhere. So we're getting down a little bit more asphaltum as we come down to the bottom, as it gets a little darker. It works its way up. About here. And then some nice textural areas back in here. Use the side of the brush because I get a different kind of a mark, which adds some of the textural qualities I'm looking for. You make it feel like what you see. Basically, it's blue, brown, and white at this point. Really, no other tricky colors in there. Few subtle darks in here. Get a little bit in here. You can see at the top there's an ice plant growing. So I'm adding some green and some brown. Green meaning sap. So whatever color I just had, and I'm going to go right there. Use the brush very gingerly, so I get kind of the effect without having to over render it. If I want a little bit more warmth into it, I bring a little bit of a little red, a little yellow. There we go. That's just a little flavor of warmth in the I think it's from here all the way over, creeps down on the rocks down in there. Not up in here. I just see it in there, and I see a little bit of a growth right in here, down. Peaks up in here. It's a little darker, but not as green. So I'm getting rid of that using a little bit more brown as opposed to the green, and we're going to go right in here where it goes. Little textural quality up there, a little bit down here. See a little bit more. I think throw some blue into that, just because I felt like I was brown on brown on brown. So I just added a touch of blue as I did. Blue is a darkening agent along with a cooling agent. So what I did is I also added a touch of white, so I kept the value the same. Really light touches. When I want a bold mark, I press. When I want a delicate mark, I just let the tip strike the canvas, and then move the paint if I need to move it one way or the other. We got a little bit of a shrub right in there. That's the brown and a little bit of the green. A lot of, I see some reds in there too, actually. Can't get them in all at once. It's a myriad of colors. It's not a color. So we got that. Now we're going to get this one. We're going to come right down from here. We're going to put it right here.
Here's the famous Craig Nelson.
We're moving it right here. Going this way. Back here. Up. So we've got most of the stuff going on. You start to see, if you look at this, you start to see a similarity between the two. Hopefully. Here. Now we got a beautiful river of kind of green going in there. Not going to worry about it right now. I want to get a little bit more textural quality in here. So I'm still working from back to front. Okay. But anytime you do landscapes in particular, but I do it with figures, I do it with everything. I always work from back there to up here. Is what I usually tell everybody. Up here, back there, back there. Farthest thing back, right there. All right. So I want to get a little bit of some of these textural qualities in here, and I'm just gingerly using this brush, not very heavy, light touch. If I use heavy, I get kind of a big clumsy mark. So when I want a big bold statement, I use it. When I don't, I delicately. We're going to end up with the brighter lights, which sits on top. We're ending up with a lot of the texture in here. And I'm going to go back to this kind of in between colors, a little cooler. And we're going to go right in here. Whoop, I don't like that. We'll do it again. That's a little better. Well, like as I give surfaces to me means as I start to apply the lights later on. And we're not even 30 minutes into it. So I've got plenty of time to get into that right now, which means the more time you have that you can build. I call this building textural differences, subtleties, particularly stuff like this where it's so darn busy. People look at that and they go, how do you do that? You don't do it exactly unless you want to give yourself about a week. You do it so it feels correct. That's probably the biggest thing that I could tell anybody when they go out and paint a landscape is you don't paint all the exactness of everything. What you end up painting you make it feel like you've done everything right, but at the same time, like I'm just looking for textural differences. A little cooler. Ooh, I like that, but it works. I want to take that, add a little bit of white, warm it up just a touch, and bring it down here. Bring it down to warm. Still there. It's got to stay in that cool range. There we go. Bring it down. Down in here. Oh, this beautiful little dark ridges. But a lot of people want to paint those as lines. I usually say take a big brush and just feel your way through it. So because if you draw it like a line, it's going to look wrong. I'm setting myself up. What I'm actually doing is I'm giving myself a place to put the lights when I start adding lights. I'll start adding lights in about 10 or 15 minutes. So not before. So I'm going to stand back for a second. Okay, I'm going to hit the broom. I think I need to start. I don't like that mainly because it's just not far enough. I've got a good start, but I need to take it through. So, but I am going to need to hit those greens. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to come in a little bolder with something like that. And I'm just laying paint on points. Stand back. Looks better from a distance, which is good. All right, I'm taking green. Sap green, Naples yellow, And it's coming out very acidic. So I don't have ochre. So I have to add some red or some brown to compensate for that real green color. I think I'm coming pretty close right now, but maybe a little asphalt. Yeah, let me add just a test. I'm going to do it right there. So I think I'm closer to this color than I am to the beautiful green. And that color, where does it start? This way. It starts about here. These real quick strokes you're seeing made give me a kind of look that the actual character has. Now, as this moves down, it gets warm. So I can have to take that same, as long as I keep the value the same, go down and make a warmer version of the same color. Okay, let me test this and see how it's working. I want a little bit more brown. There we go. Let's try this. Down in here, just kind of push it around because we're creating illusions right now. Stand back. I feel like it needs to be lighter, but I'm not going to do it right now. So I want to, oh, I got some blue in there. I kind of like that. That was an accident. I'm going to take my normal yellow and I'm going to move it back into that green I was using, which is going to liven it up and make it a little bit more green-like. Probably more than I want, but what the heck? Let's test it and see where. You know what? It's better than I thought. That's going to work. Now, drag it over some of this so we give some of that illusion and characteristics. So we get that. I normally wouldn't have thought that was going to work, and it is. It's working better than I thought. A little bit more green as it goes down, right down. Let's see, where does it come? It comes right in here. So you kind of map it in where you think it goes. If you're wrong, you adjust it. But I'll tell you one thing. Please do not be afraid. It's like, oh, I'm doing it wrong. Okay. I'll tell you why. Because the answer is yes, you're probably doing it wrong. I'm probably doing it wrong. But eventually I'll get there. And some of the wrong becomes your underpainting for what finalizes your piece. And it's not as wrong as you think. It's a little warmer, a little browner down in here. Down back. Stand back for a second. So it's very abstracted. It's exactly the way that I actually prefer it at this stage. Not when it's done. I want it to make a lot more sense by the time I'm complete. So I'm mixing up a nice warm, way too warm. I'm going to throw a little asphalt in there. And I'm going to test right here. Nope, more asphalt. Asphalt, this thing is pretty much as perfect. A little lighter. I'm going to put some of those. So what you see me doing now is giving surface. So I'm adding a little surface to some of these rocks. As I move up in this area, I'm actually going to switch over to a number 10 flat, and I'm going to see what I can do about adding a little bit of information. I think the first thing I'm going to do is go back to this brush, and I'm going to it's really interesting. I really realized by not having ochre how much I rely on it. Yeah, I want to go a little greener. All that means is like it takes me a little bit longer to mix up colors. It's not that it's terrible. It just you can't arrive as quickly with that color. A little lighter. Just giving a top surface to some of this ice plant up there. A little bit here. Okay. Oh, does that work? Yeah, it works good enough. Now I want to go ice a little lighter. And warmer. That's close, but I want a little lighter still. Okay. A little cooler. Same value, but cooler. So what do? I add blue. And we're going to bring it down here. And then bring another. Now, what this brush does, it lets you be a little bit more accurate, not quite as carefree. It's still a big brush, but with a little surface down in here. So what I'm doing now is I'm starting to look back into those shadows and find information and then clarify. Well, I want to distinguish this rock. It's getting to where I'm going to need to. So first thing I'm going to do is there's a little seaweed back on the shore back there. So I'm going to indicate that. Keep it on the warm side. But not hot warm. Probably somewhere about in here. Maybe even a little warmer. There's a little lizard into it. Okay. A little bit. This rock I want to come up higher. Okay. Now, just to distinguish this and those, I'm going to start to distinguish the difference there. So I'm taking my Naples yellow, almost direct to the middle white. Add some medium. And let's see what we can do. Really delicate. A little too heavy. I think I'm a little too light. Just add a little bit of asphalt and get back into that color. No, this one stroke is too heavy. Okay. Knocked that down, didn't I? Light here. Now there's this rock back behind, and it's this one. This one. We're going to put the top on it. And the key is to have the right colors underneath. If you don't have the right colors underneath, it probably won't take the correct form. You're going to throw a little bit more asphalt. And as it's a little bit more light, it's not quite as light. So this is the one area right now that I felt like I needed to clarify before I went further with some of the other painting. So we're going to hold that at that point right now. I'm going to go back up in here. We're going to start with that background because I can see a light but a warm light. So I'm going to take the same color I have, mix asphalt, a little bit of a warm, and a yellow. And I think this is too much, but I might try it anyway. It's falling into that ochre range, which is one of the things I was shooting for. Put a little medium in it. Here's my add medium, but I want it to stick. So we're going to go right here. Probably a little too dark. What I do, I either add white or Naples yellow, one or the other. In this case, I just add white. A little bit of Naples now. And a little bit here. It started to work. I had to stand back to tell him. Never, I'm really not good at standing close and being able to judge. I think it works. Sometimes I get back and I go, nope, I gotta go brighter. I gotta go, it's too bright. I've watched other artists, students primarily do this stuff, and they want to go immediately to a brush like this. I've used the brush like this. It's better to learn how to take this brush and use the different characters, the different facets, rather than sit there and try and draw exactness in. That's where overwork happens. And I know people have asked in the past, how do I avoid overwork? And my line is it's always been the same. Use a bigger brush. Starting to bring to life, but I don't have as much understructure in it as I would really like to have. And that's my fault. I'd like to blame you guys for that, but that's my fault. There's a little bit of light creeping right there. So we make it feel like there's detail back there. As I stand back, it feels like there's detail back there. Good. So one other thing I see is right up in here, it's a little lighter and a little cooler. And so I'm going to take my blue, brown, rubbing Naples. Hopefully I'm about the value I want. Take a little bit of medium with it, because as I paint on wet paint, I need more medium. That looks to be okay. I think. Tell you in a second. I'm just doing what I see. I'm not doing anything tricky, but I'm seeing subtlety. Where before, I didn't want to see subtleties. I wanted to see big, basic simplicities. Now I'm beginning to see more subtle variations, and that's what I'm beginning to apply. If it pops out too much, it means I'm not subtle, and I need to kind of bring it back into the paint. And so it sits back into a little bit of a light area here. Stand back. Okay, it's starting to feel better. It's starting to get more comfortable. And I see as it hits the edge, I'm getting an edge, a little bit of a lighter, cooler edge right there. Keep an eye on the time. Okay, kind of where I want to be. We've got the best area down. So we want to get these textural differences. I put it. I'm gonna start to move up into this warmer area, which I already put a little bit in here, but I kind of messed up. I need to come back with the sky. But now I'm going to take my Naples, my medium, a little warm. And I'm going to see, I think I'm too strong, but let's see. That's my first guess. It's not sticky. You see that? It's too dry. So add a more medium. Now watch the difference between that and what I do now. Same pressure, same brush. The difference is I have more medium. So the paint is laying on top and not wanting to push itself back into the paint that's already there. Not a little overlap. I'm using the thin tip of the brush to make the marks. So just basically setting the brush down and letting the tip just lay paint down. Standing back. Okay, it's okay. Starting to feel like this. And we're a little up at the top. But remember, I did have some underpainting in there. Now, ideally, I would have put even more underpainting in. But you know, I know that I'm working in a time frame, much as if I was painting outside, you're working in a time frame. And you know you're only going to get so much. So this is where that word editing kind of comes into play. How much do you want to indicate? How much do you want to leave out? So we're going to go all the way up here now. It's a little lighter. Right there. I'm letting the brush really do the work, you guys. I'm guiding the brush, but it's laying the paint down the way that I want it to go down. And a very light touch. You probably can see that, but I'm really not pressing. I'm just kind of letting the paint lay down. And it gets really nice and warm. I'm going to go warmer with more red and yellow. As I move over to the right. I'm going to see if I can get it to work right about in here if it's warmer. Stepping back. I feel like I'm getting there. It's a good feeling. I'm not there. I'm getting there. I need to get a little more medium. We want to start adding a few more little lights right in that area. Now I could be doing some of this with a knife. Let's see how that works. Okay, I'll take this. See, with the knife, I get different kinds of marks, different kinds of textures. So I like switching back and forth very often, particularly when I do rocks. Well, I'll use a knife, and then if I feel like I'm getting too much, I'll switch over to a brush, and then I'll switch back to the knife. That's too much, so I'll just kind of scrape that down a little bit. Get a little bit lighter. I want to keep an eye on the time. I've got about 40 minutes, so I want to get a lot of this stuff right in here. It's probably going to take a little bit more time than some of the other areas, but as we move forward, I think it's important that I give this the care that it needs. So I'm going to go back to my other brush. A little bit more medium. I added some white. When I added white, it got sticky. So when it gets sticky, I got to add medium. And what I want to do is go up here. Go right up here. Oh, I just took some paint off and it worked great. You're not going to paint every crevice, by the way, you guys, just so you know. You're going to paint the feet. So I'm illuminating. When I talked earlier, I talked about illuminating it and getting it starting to look where it was. And that's what I'm doing. I'm illuminating it. I'm getting it to feel like there's light hitting it. But You have to have something underneath. You can't just start adding lights. And the longer you can wait, I can't because we're on a time constraint. The longer you can wait just means the more understructure you can lay into. The more understructure you can lay into it, the better. What do you make some color? That was running out. A little too warm. A little too much red, so it makes more yellow, medium. That feels pretty, that's close.
I know.
I don't ever care if I'm exactly. They just say, I just want to be close. I'm going to start coming closer. So I'm adding more whites. A little more medium. Maybe a touch more yellow. We're going to come in on the top of this rock. A lot of texture right in here. I got to get some going in the green too. You can see right now, but I want to come right down in here. We want to get some of the lights. I may have to throw some darks back into it because probably overdoing the lights a little more than I wanted it. That just means I just take the nice dark that I had there. I want to paint a little shadow detail in here too, you guys, just so you know. There is a feeling of information in the shadows, but I got to work my way over here right now. We're going to work our way from there over here, and I'm going to start going a little faster, and I'll probably be wrong in a lot of areas and have to go back and do some adjustments. Big rock right here, right? See that big powerful rock right there? We're just going to put it in like that. And then we got rocks sneaking their way down here. It's almost whiter. It's almost cool at this point. Add a little blue to it if I can. A lot going on in here, a lot of stuff. So I've really got to move. I was getting too comfortable. I want to get the busyness that I see there. The activity, so to speak. Now, pretty cool. So I added more white, more blue. Right where this overlaps that rock. Step back. It's a little abrupt, but it's okay. Abrupt, but I can see a lot of other colors back there. I'm going to add a little bit of detail. Take my time. I think I'm okay time-wise by taking the time to add. I could edit out that detail, but I'm going to add some pools. That's too light. Add more asphaltum. Feels a little better. It's going to sit into the shadow. I probably should have put this in earlier. You stand back. Yeah, that's adding a little. So it feels like there's information back there. destroy a little bit of my other painting and add. That actually helps. I just stood back twice, just so you guys. I know you can't see that when I do, so that's why I'm telling you. And the reason I think it's important that you all are aware of that you need to get back. Cannot stress that enough. I really can't. That starts to add, so it's a little empty right here. I can see here. I see a little piece of light. Or I shouldn't say light, it's shadow actually, but it's information within the shadow. Little right in here. Right, now let's leave that alone. I just don't have time to fuss. But I'm going to put a little bit in here. I want to get a little bit of a cool now that I see it right on this rock, right about there. Then we're going to have to add some lighter greens, but before I do, I want to get a little bit of information in this rock. You see the shadow. This is what I should have done up front on this. Push it. If it's too light, I'm just stroking it again and it'll push it right back into that kind of gray brown that I have. This is where you really have to look into your shadows and find that kind of information. And then just indicate it. Don't sit there and indicate the feeling of it. So that's shadow detail that I just threw in there. All right. Now you look at it and you go, oh, I'm not sure how I like that. And you know what? I'm not either. But I'll tell you what, I truly believe that if I come over it with some brighter lights, it'll start to work. But I mixed a kind of braid violet, very dark. Oh, I like that. That kind of slightly red is going to make this rock come forward. I can actually use that up in here too. So, and it also just adds a little color variation. So it doesn't feel like it's all one dead color. Little strong, a little too much red, so I just mixed a little green back into it. Green being the complement of red, to dull the red down and not make it quite as severe. Okay, as I stand back, it feels pretty good. The thing that I like, this rock feels in front of this rock. Okay, so let's move back to the knife for a second. These nice light. I'm going to go a little bit more white. But what I want to do is get this nice light areas. On the top of that rock. I think it's working. I need some in-between tones also. Can't all be that light. And it's cooler over here. Not sure why. Oh, that's way too clumsy. We just remove a little bit of it with a spray. I don't like some of the marks I'm getting. Some of it switched my brush. Stand back. Knocked out. I think I need to get a little bit more in between information, like back in here and down. Some of those grayer browns that aren't quite as bright. Okay. Well, I think they found out I'm painting here. They're coming after me. I hear sirens. I think I can add more color to that, to this one. I didn't mean to put that much down. So, you know, when you go really fast, sometimes you mess up. So go back to this kind of gray, brown, purple, whatever the hell color it is, and knock it back. And that's what you do when you go back in. Now, if I want to put some more what we like call deeper crevices, I can go back there and I just add a more brown and slightly darker. Hopefully what you do is you can see how you can get more power into your painting, more value. If I want to go, if I really want to pop, sometimes I'm going to try this. Okay, straight alizarin fix it right back to that. Straight alizarin, fall. Straight alizarin. If that's too strong, you layer. Come back over, throw a little green into that, and we'll come back. And what we're doing is we're making this rock come way out in front of that. And I would take the same and move it back into this area. And if that means what you have to do at some point is to restructure some of the lights so they're not so picked at. You just take your darks and you chip back into them until you hit what you want. That's actually working better than I thought when I said up close. It's a little bit from a distance. It works better. So we're gonna a little bit in here, and then a little bit up the top. Okay, let's leave it alone for a little bit. Let's move on. Move back to the background. I'm gonna take my big brush. And that. Yeah, and we're going to the water. Get back into the water. I need to take white, little blue, little maples. And we're going to test. A little medium. I want to bring some of that sky. Okay. Same color. No, I don't like where I have the sky. I want the sky up higher. I mean, I'm sorry. I want the water line up higher. I just caught that. I just don't like where it's at. So I'm doing the water again. I think I'm okay. I think I want to come right here. Okay, I feel better about it now. Back to white. That didn't take too long, did it? You know why I didn't fuss on it? I just did it. That's good. A little lighter. Right here. Lighter still. I'm gonna do okay. We're going on white. More white. Now we clean the edge of the rock up with the water. And this white is going to work its way up here. Right there. A little bit. Okay. Okay. As we move up here, get some areas that feel almost a little brown. And what it does is as it comes closer, it'll pick up the sand and you'll get some of that brown in there. So it's not as clean of a blue. And that's what adds some of the character and believability to water if you paint. So it's not all blue. People think of water as being blue. Water is reflective. It's also, you know, in an ocean, you can pick up minerals. There's a lot going on, a lot more going on than just blue. I see a pretty good warm right about there. Relate some of that in. Now I'll go back. We also get a little bit of, I'm gonna find a water line, which is right here, which is right. We'll fix it in a second, but right now it's gonna go right here. And that, the reason I want to do that is I do see this reflecting down in the water, just a little bit. And that doesn't look like it's bright enough, but it will in a second because we're gonna now take white, mix it in with kind of like a blue, but a lot of white, a lot of medium, and we're gonna start in right. That shows up that reflection. So now we want to get a little bit of variation right in here. A little darker here, a little bit light behind it. I want to go overboard on all of this stuff, but I want to get enough variation where it feels convincing. Let's get the sand in and then whatever rocks we're going to put into it. So the sand is going to be almost that color. Remember I said that right at the beginning. I'll go back to my big brush, pick up some white, and kind of thick here. Pretty much used up almost all my medium. Yeah, a little bit. Great. I'm mixing up a lot of this, you guys, just so you know. That's why it's taking a little bit longer. I want it, I'm going to plow it on this line. Place some more medium up because I ran out of medium. But the medium, I'm referring to solvent-free gel, by the way. There's a color. That feels good. Okay. It's a little cooler as it comes towards these too, I just noticed, but I'm not gonna mess with it right now. Back here, a little sliver of sand. Down here, quite a bit lighter. Even lighter. Let's clean up the edge of the rock. Clean up the edge of this rock. It needs to be defined one more time. So rather than dirty up the brush, I grab this another brush I already had that was dirty. And we're gonna take that in there a little dark as I wrecked it. That's not dark. Just that as I stood back, I could see it wasn't quite. I need to get a little darker, still more. It's an important area. That's the only reason I'm fussing. That it stands out a little bit better. It's still up there. I still don't like it. And it's mainly darks and it is right about here. So I just grabbed whatever dark I had already mixed in my palette, kind of plowed it back after that. That's better. Okay. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it. So from that, we're going to go down, we're going to get more of the sand in. Here, create a shadow. Come over. It tells me I can get whiter here, which is okay. The rock is, there's seaweed below it. I'm not going to get a lot of that in there. And a little bit more asphalt, not a lot, but a little bit up here. So I'd make it just a touch darker. Just want to get paint down right now. Create that shadow. Okay, so now let's deal with these, with a few of the rocks that we're going to put in. I've already kind of indicated one. I have a nice dark, so I can indicate this little rock right up above it. And it's kind of the violet mixed with the brown and the blue. It's a little dark. I'm going to put another little one right here. Little one above it. One over here, right here. Kind of had it already. I had that already kind of mapped in, if you notice. One above that. It's a matter of how many I want to put. One off to the side. I kind of like that seaweed wrapping around it, but kind of don't want to get into too much of that. With some seaweed right about in here, so I'm just going to smear. The reason I wanted to do that is one of the things with seaweed, you can get colors. I don't have ochre, unfortunately, but I've got a yellow that I'm just kind of plowing in along with it. And we want to get some darks back into it. Leave that alone right now. Almost abstract at this point. Part of it is time. Part of it is I don't want to overstate anything up front. Let's give those rocks some surfaces. Pour down these white. I'm actually mixing it right into the sand color. So I know I'm lighter. And maybe I'll throw a little maples into it also. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit the top of the salt. Now, show you one thing I don't like that I'm going to fix. Is that's too straight of a line, but the rock has got a little bit more of a shape. So I'm just carving that shape back out. That gives me a better shape on that rock. There's a rock up in front of it. A little bit of a light on this side, and a little on the top. Rock that on there. So take that white, it's whiter. And I said, this is standing out more, so I added more white now. See, I know because you can see if you're off. And I know now that I can use more white in that color to get to stand out even more so. And if I go too far with one, I just go back with a little bit of a dark and re-indicate from the dark what you might call shadow detail. Working. Now this rock is also, doesn't show it, but it's also going to have a little bit of a shadow. This rock probably will also, which means down at the base, get a little bit. Now, if I want to show this shadow off, what I would do is, whoops, I don't want to go that light. I want to just lighten it a little bit as it gets to the rock. It will make the rock and the shadow separate. Yeah. There, now it's a rock and a shadow. What's the line? A rock and a hard place? It's a rock and a shadow. Going back to sand color, which I kind of obliterated, but it's somewhere in here. Just cleaning some of this stuff up where I see it's a little off, but I can add something just a little bit more to it. Top down, some of those lights I threw in and they're a little heavy handed for my taste. So literally I see another little rock area right there. I kind of like that, another little layer. Right, but it gives me just one more layer. Now I can go back and add the lights on top of that, like I have on a lot of the other rocks. Oh, a wild hair there. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go back to the greens. Told you I was going to do that. We got about 10 minutes. So take some yellow, a little medium, a little white, a little bit more yellow. Get more yellow. And I'm going to go right. Yeah, I'm going to add a little bit more yellow. Oh, so I wasn't sure which one we're going to go for. I'm still deciding. Yes. Let me know when you decide. Okay. Little color. It livens it up, which is what I was looking for. Throw a little bit more green into that color. Oops, too much. Dull the green down a little bit. Right, Julian. A little asphalt into that green. And we dulled it down. That's a better green as it moves down the page. A little bit more warm than that green. So I can use asphalt, I can use a red, anything that's warm. That's good. A little more warm. And just kind of mixing it up to the side so I'm not destroying the green itself. Right into that green. So I mixed about 4 or 5 greens already with those, just so you know. I could still go a lot lighter behind, if you notice. But before I do, I want to brighten this up and keep it going. That looks pretty good. I'm going to try that.
What's the primary green?
That is pretty good.
Primary green.
It's not great. Got to give it good textural edge to that when I paint it. What's that? Oh. Yeah, it's the green, the brighter greens are helping. So much stick. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna take a little bit more light. What's that? I think. Oh, that's it. Want to brighten up some of the lights just a little bit. They're bothering me.
Here you go.
Yeah, it's kind of a yellow orange and a lot of medium. And we're going to brighten up.
Yeah, long as that.
So it's just looking to what I can get lighter. Because it feels like it's a little on the dull side. It's way back that time, guys. About 15 feet back. It's about Some of this feels like it needs a little bit more. And I can take that rock and brighten it even more. Couldn't tell until I said that. It come up, even within the lights, I painted them one simple color. But there's many variations that you can get into. Just looking right in here. How are we doing time-wise?
About 5 minutes.
We got five entire minutes. So I know some of you are saying, what are you gonna put some surfer in? And no. It's simple. I just think it's gonna distract from the feeling of this landscape. So I hadn't planned it right from the beginning. Right there, but I need to throw some more darks. This is where we switch, go back to this brush. I was probably picking with that one brush or two, and I'm gonna need to kind of vary it more. So by pushing, sometimes you get a little bit of a different effect. But if you're always painting down, just it's the same concept as using the side of your brush sometimes. Use the side of your brush. Whoop, didn't mean to do that. Finally, when there's 3 minutes left, you can pick your liner up. Don't like that at all. So I went ahead and did a little in here on hand, but I don't want to overdo it. If you do too much of this, it looks like you've drawn on your painting. So you just want to be really sparing with how much, whoops, with how much you use the your liner. The better create the illusion of lines than really the step back. It's a little dense right in here. Probably knock that back a little bit, bring maybe a little bit more color into it. Step back a little bit. Get it up. They carve back into it, even though you may have put a lot of lights into it. If they're right, leave it. If they're wrong, use your dark, go back in and reshape them. So one of the things that I've done, I see a little bit of an orange I get in. Probably got about a minute. I'm gonna do kind of a dirty orange. Just kind of drag it in right in here.
Wow.
A little darker. We're just about done, you guys. So we're adding as much information, correct information, as I possibly can get into it in a time. And I could really push that yellow at the very end. Let's see if I can do it. That's about all I'm gonna get done. So hopefully you guys got a little something that's helpful out of this. I got a painting that's laid in, which is usually one of the things. Last thing I want to say to everybody is these are not. I mean, people look at this and say, "Well, that's how you paint." And the answer is, yeah, it's how I paint, but I paint way beyond this. In other words, I go way a lot further. So these are like big, giant plein air pieces, or you can refer to them as large lay-ins. So everything is there. It just needs more development. But I go as far. Usually, it's like a plein air piece. I go as far as I can with the time that I have, and that's pretty much what I've done with this painting. Gone about as far as I can on the time that I have, and which is 90 minutes. So, with that in mind, so thank everybody, like I always do, Anna, Scott, and all of you for watching. And that's our Leadbetter Beach painting for today. Okay. Take care, everyone. See you next week. Bye-bye.